She watched a woman get dragged away in handcuffs while her children screamed, and she smiled. For 3 years, this mafia boss's wife terrorized everyone in that mansion. Nobody dared to challenge her. Nobody even tried until the day a broke attorney turned maid with nothing left to lose discovered her darkest secret. This is the true story of how one woman brought down a monster. Not with violence or connections, but with the truth. And I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll never look at manufactured power the same way again. This is a story about revenge. No, it's about something far more powerful than that. Stay with me. Let me tell you a story about identity, secrets, and what happens when someone finally says enough. Before continuing, comment where in the world you're watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. In the hills of Los Angeles, there was a mansion that belonged to Marcus Duyan. Not just any mansion, mind you. This was the kind of place where the marble floors were imported from Italy and the chandeliers cost more than most people's houses. Security cameras watched every corner. The wine cellar held bottles worth 5 figures. Even the silence felt dangerous. And in this world of luxury and whispered warnings, there was one name that made everyone freeze. Bianca Ashford. She was the wife of Marcus Duyan, a Korean mafia boss whose name alone could end careers, businesses, lives. His power built empires in the shadows. But Bianca, she built something different. She built an empire of fear. Every day at precisely 2 p.m., she would descend the grand staircase. Always dressed like royalty, always carrying herself like she owned not just the house but every soul in it, and always ready to destroy someone's life if they dared to displease her. The staff would literally hold their breath when she entered a room. They'd seen what she could do. There was Rosa, a 52-year-old housekeeper who'd worked there for 7 years, arrested by immigration after Bianca planted a diamond earring in her bag. She didn't just get Rosa deported. She stood on the terrace with champagne, waving goodbye as Rosa's children cried in the driveway. And according to those who were there, she smiled. That's the kind of person Bianca Ashford was. Now, into this world walked a woman named Jasmine Williams. Jasmine was 28 years old, and 6 months ago, her life had fallen apart. She'd been working as a civil rights attorney at one of California's most respected social justice law firms. She loved that job. She was good at it, too, finding the patterns of discrimination others missed, connecting evidence that seemed impossible to connect, fighting cases that made headlines and changed laws. But then the FBI raided her firm. Embezzlement charges against her senior partners. Budget scandal. And just like that, her dream was gone. So there she was, adjusting the stiff collar of a maid's uniform, trying to remember which rooms to clean first and when to make herself invisible, feeling like she'd fallen from the courtroom into a completely different universe. My first morning at the Duyan mansion, I met Mrs. Chen in the kitchen at 5:30 a.m. She was 60 years old with silver hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, and eyes that had seen too much but still managed to show kindness. She handed me a cup of green tea without a word, then sat across from me at the small staff table tucked in the corner, far from the gleaming marble countertops and restaurant-grade appliances. There are rules, she said quietly, her Korean accent soft but her tone deadly serious. Rule number 1, never look Mrs. Bianca in the eyes. Not ever. Rule number 2, never speak unless she speaks to you first. Rule number 3, never, ever question anything she says or does. Not out loud. Not even with your face. I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. Mrs. Chen studied me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to decide how much to tell me. There was a girl before you, she finally said. Maya. She was from the Philippines, worked here 2 years. One day, Mrs. Bianca said Maya stole a bracelet. Maya said she didn't. She looked Mrs. Bianca in the eye when she said it. Mrs. Chen's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Immigration came that afternoon. Maya's still in detention. That was 8 months ago. My stomach turned cold. And before Maya? Before Maya, there was David. He questioned why Mrs. Bianca needed the pool house cleaned 3 times in one day. Mr. Marcus's lawyer called him that evening. Something about his work visa being fraudulent. She shook her head. It wasn't fraudulent. He'd been here 5 years. How many people has she? Enough, Mrs. Chen cut me off. Enough that we all know the rules now. I saw Bianca for the first time that afternoon. I was polishing the banister on the second-floor landing when she glided up the stairs. She was probably mid-30s, tall and slender, with honey blonde hair styled in perfect waves and wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my law school loans. But it was her eyes that made me freeze, ice blue, sharp, calculating. They swept over me like I was a piece of furniture she was considering replacing. I immediately looked down, remembering Mrs. Chen's first rule. I heard Bianca's heels click past me, and then she was gone, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume and something else. Something that felt like cold water down my spine. That evening, Marcus came home. I heard his car in the driveway around 8 o'clock, a black Mercedes with tinted windows. I was cleaning the windows in the front sitting room and caught a glimpse of him through the glass. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with dark hair and tired eyes. He moved like a man carrying weight that had nothing to do with his body. When he entered, Bianca was suddenly there, all smiles and affection, kissing his cheek. "Darling, how was your day?" Marcus barely looked at her. "Fine," he said flatly, heading toward his study. I watched this from the hallway, pretending to dust a table that didn't need dusting. The moment Marcus closed his study door, Bianca's smile vanished like someone had flipped a switch. Her face went cold and hard, and she turned toward the kitchen, snapping her fingers twice. "Mrs. Chen. The dinner you prepared is unacceptable. Remake everything." I heard Mrs. Chen's quiet, "Yes, Mrs. Bianca," from the kitchen. That's when I understood. Bianca only showed her teeth when the predator was away. It happened on my 3rd day. I was cleaning the French doors that led to the terrace, trying to be invisible like Mrs. Chen had taught me, when I heard Bianca's voice cut through the afternoon air like a blade. "Are you incompetent or just stupid?" I looked up. Carmen, the youngest housekeeper, 19 years old with kind eyes and hands that never stopped trembling, was standing beside Bianca's lunch table. A crystal water glass sat on the white linen tablecloth, maybe an inch away from Bianca's perfectly manicured hand. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Bianca, Carmen's voice shook. "Reset the table," Bianca said, not even looking at her. She was scrolling through her phone, her other hand drumming impatiently on the armrest of her chair. Carmen's hands were shaking as she removed the plates, the silverware, the napkin. She reset everything, placing the water glass closer this time. "Wrong," Bianca said flatly. "The fork is half an inch from where it should be. Do it again." I watched through the glass as Carmen reset the table a second time. Then a third. By the 4th time, tears were streaming down Carmen's face. She was trying so hard not to make a sound, biting her lip until I thought it might bleed. "The knife is tilted," Bianca observed, her voice bored now, like she was commenting on the weather. Again. 5th time. 6th time. Carmen's hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped a plate. I could see her chest heaving, trying to breathe through panic. On the 7th attempt, Bianca picked up her phone and started dialing. "Mrs. Chen, I need Marcus's direct line. We have a staff member who needs to be dealt with." "Yes, the Salvadoran girl. Today, please." Something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped, like a rubber band pulled too tight. I'd spent 3 years in courtrooms watching this exact pattern. Psychological abuse. Labor exploitation. Power used as a weapon against the vulnerable. I'd prosecuted managers who did this to workers. I'd won those cases. And I'd sworn I'd never watch it happen without doing something. I opened the terrace door. "Mrs. Bianca, I can fix the table." Both of them looked at me. Carmen's eyes were wide with terror for me now, not just herself. Bianca's ice blue eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw something flicker there. Surprise, maybe. Nobody interrupted her. I'm trained in formal table service, I lied smoothly, channeling every ounce of courtroom composure I'd ever possessed. I can ensure it meets your standards. Carmen can assist me with the kitchen duties instead. Bianca studied me for a long moment. I kept my face neutral, my posture respectful but not cowering. Finally, she waved her hand dismissively. Fine. Both of you, get out of my sight. I took Carmen's arm and guided her inside, feeling Bianca's eyes burning into my back. In the staff quarters, Carmen collapsed onto a chair, sobbing into her hands. She does this all the time, Carmen whispered when she could finally speak. Last week, she made me clean the same bathroom for 6 hours because she said she could smell my poverty on the tiles. I knelt beside her, my legal mind already cataloging everything. This wasn't just cruelty. This was systematic. Calculated. And people like Bianca, people who needed this much control, this much power over others, they were always hiding something. The cruelest people build the tallest walls around their weakest secrets. My old mentor taught me that. I just needed to find the crack. 2 days after the terrace incident, Mrs. Chen found me in the laundry room. Mrs. Bianca wants you upstairs. Her closet needs organizing. The walk-in closet was bigger than my entire studio apartment back in the city. Rows of designer dresses, walls of shoes still in boxes, handbags that cost more than cars. I was halfway through sorting summer dresses from fall when Bianca swept in, holding a garment bag like it contained the crown jewels. Jasmine, isn't it? Her voice was honey-sweet, which somehow made it worse. I have a special task for you. She unzipped the bag and pulled out a pale blue dress, vintage Dior, by the looks of it, with delicate beading along the neckline. It was beautiful in the way that old things are beautiful, carrying history in every thread. This dress was worn by Princess Diana, Bianca said, watching my face. Authenticated, insured for $50,000. I need it steamed for an event tomorrow. Think you can handle that? Every instinct I developed in 3 years of litigation started screaming. This was a setup. But I kept my face neutral. Of course, Mrs. Bianca. I took the dress downstairs to the laundry room, worked the steamer with surgical precision, checking every inch of fabric before and after. 20 minutes later, I returned it to the closet, hanging it exactly where she'd indicated. Bianca examined it slowly, running her fingers over the fabric. Then she gasped. What did you do? She spun toward me, holding up the dress. There was a small tear near the waist seam, about 2 inches long. You destroyed it. Do you have any idea what you've done? My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. Years of facing hostile witnesses had trained me for this. Mrs. Bianca, I'd like to see the dress's authentication papers and insurance documentation, please. She blinked. Excuse me? For a dress of this value and provenance, there would be detailed condition reports. I'd also like to see photographs of the dress from when you acquired it. I stepped closer, pointing to the tear. This damage follows an existing stress line in the fabric. You can see the thread degradation extends beyond the visible tear. This is consistent with age-related deterioration, not new damage. Bianca's face went white, then red. Are you calling me a liar? I'm asking for documentation, I said calmly. If you're planning to pursue legal action, and you mentioned suing me and having me arrested, you'll need to establish the dress's condition prior to my handling it. Any competent attorney would request the same information I'm requesting now. I'm happy to wait while you retrieve those documents. For a long moment, we stood there. I could see her mind working, recalculating. She'd expected tears. Panic. Begging. Instead, she got legal procedure delivered in courtroom calm tone. Finally, she waved her hand dismissively. It's a misunderstanding. I must have been looking at the wrong seam. You can go. I nodded and walked out, keeping my pace measured until I reached the staff quarters. Only then did I let my hands shake. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway. She tested you, the older woman said quietly. She does it to all the new ones. You're the first who didn't break. That night, lying in my small room above the garage, I stared at the ceiling and realized something crucial. Bianca's power wasn't real power. It was borrowed, manufactured, performed. She was a bully, and bullies only work on people who are afraid. I'd spent my career facing down corporate lawyers and corrupt officials. Bianca Ashford didn't scare me. Which meant she should probably be scared of me. I was in the kitchen making chamomile tea when Marcus walked in. It was barely 7 o'clock, early for him. Usually he didn't return until well after midnight, smelling like cigarette smoke and expensive whiskey. He stopped when he saw me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. Up close, I could see the exhaustion etched into his face, the kind that comes from years, not days. Dark circles under his eyes. Tension in his jaw. He looked like a man who'd made choices he couldn't unmake. Jasmine, he said quietly. Not a question. He knew my name. Mr. Dion. I set down my mug. He moved to the espresso machine, making himself a drink with practiced movements. The silence stretched between us, not quite comfortable but not hostile either. Finally, he spoke without turning around. My wife, she's under a lot of pressure. Maintaining her social position, the expectations of this world we live in. Sometimes that pressure makes people act in ways they wouldn't normally act. I kept my face neutral, my voice respectful. I understand, sir. Do you? He turned then, and I saw something in his eyes, shame, maybe, or regret. I apologize for any difficulty she's caused you. She doesn't mean it personally. The attorney in me wanted to argue. Wanted to say that systematic psychological abuse is always personal, always intentional. But I was a maid now, not a lawyer. So I just nodded. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He set it on the marble counter between us, his hand lingering there for a moment before pulling away. Consider this a bonus. For your patience. Then he left, taking his espresso with him, leaving me alone with the envelope and 1,000 questions. Inside was 10 $100 bills. $1,000. More than 2 weeks of my salary, just for enduring his wife's cruelty for one afternoon. I sat there for a long time, staring at that money, thinking about Marcus. He seemed genuinely uncomfortable. Almost embarrassed. Either he didn't know the full extent of what Bianca was doing, the deportations, the false accusations, the systematic torture of vulnerable people, or he knew and was deliberately looking away because confronting it would mean confronting the choice he'd made in marrying her. But that social pressure excuse kept nagging at me. My mentor at Morrison & Chen, Sarah Okoye, used to say something when we were building cases against corporate executives who abused their power. The cruelest people are always protecting the most fragile lies. Find the lie, find the leverage. What was Bianca protecting? I thought about everything I'd observed. The way she performed her aristocratic British accent so precisely it sounded rehearsed. The way she name-dropped designer brands and exclusive social circles like someone proving their membership. The way she was viciously cruel to staff who were immigrants, people of color, anyone who reminded her of. Of what? I pulled out my phone, the old one I'd kept even after everything fell apart, and opened a browser. Started with the basics. Bianca Ashford. Bianca Sterling, her maiden name, according to the society pages. London socialite. The results were surprisingly thin. Engagement announcements. Charity event photos. But nothing before 4 years ago. No school records. No family history. No real paper trail. It was almost like Bianca Ashford hadn't existed until the day she met Marcus. And in my experience, when someone's past was that clean, that absent, it usually meant they were hiding something worth finding. I started asking questions carefully. Too careful, Mrs. Chen probably thought, but she answered anyway during our early morning tea ritual that had become routine. "How long has Mrs. Bianca been married to Mr. Marcus?" I asked, keeping my tone casual, like I was just making conversation. Mrs. Chen added honey to her tea. 4 years. Almost 4 years exactly. That's not very long. Were you here for the wedding? Something shifted in Mrs. Chen's expression. There was no wedding. Not here. They married in Las Vegas, just the two of them. Very sudden. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Mr. Marcus's family was not happy. His mother, his uncles, they wanted him to marry a Korean woman. Someone from a good family they knew. But he came back with Mrs. Bianca, and that was that. None of them came to meet her. His mother came once. Only once. Mrs. Chen's voice dropped. She left after 2 hours and never returned. I heard her tell Mr. Marcus that his wife was not who she claimed to be. They argued in Korean. Mr. Marcus said his mother was being traditional and prejudiced. His mother said it wasn't about prejudice, it was about lies. I filed that away. What did Bianca say her background was? London aristocracy. The Sterling family. Old money, she said. Her father was in banking, mother was a philanthropist. She showed Mr. Marcus photos of a big estate, said it was her childhood home. Mrs. Chen shrugged. But none of her family came to meet him either. She said they disapproved of his business, that they'd disowned her for choosing love over their approval. It was almost romantic. Almost believable. The kind of story that would appeal to a man who defied his own family. During my afternoon break, I went to the library, the actual physical library, because I needed computer access and privacy. I started with public records. Birth certificates, school enrollments, anything for Bianca Sterling, born in the UK between 1985 and 1995. Nothing matched. Not one credible result. I tried property records for the Sterling family. Found several, but none connected to anyone named Bianca. Searched for her parents, the banker father, the philanthropist mother. Dead ends everywhere. Then I found the engagement announcement in Elite Society magazine, dated 4 years ago. There was Bianca, stunning in a cream dress, and Marcus beside her looking younger, happier. The text was exactly what you'd expect. Marcus Du-Yun, prominent Los Angeles businessman, announces his engagement to Bianca Sterling, London-based socialite and philanthropist. Miss Sterling brings elegance and grace to the West Coast social scene. That was it. No mention of which schools she'd attended. Which charities she'd supported. Which part of London she was from. No family details beyond the Sterling family of London. I'd written enough background checks as a paralegal to know what a real society announcement looked like. They were specific. Detailed. They name-dropped relentlessly because that was the whole point, to establish credentials, connections, legitimacy. This announcement was vaguer than a resume with a 6-year employment gap. I sat back in the library chair, my legal instincts humming. This wasn't just thin. This was constructed. Someone had built an identity the way you'd build a house of cards, pretty from a distance, but one strong breath away from collapse. Bianca Ashford wasn't hiding her past. She'd erased it completely. And whatever she'd erased, whatever she'd been before she became Mrs. Marcus Du-Yun, she was willing to destroy anyone who got close to discovering it. I found it on Bianca's Instagram account, buried in her earliest posts from 4 years ago. Back when she was newly engaged, still building her image as Marcus's society wife. Most of the photos were carefully curated, charity galas, luxury boutiques, champagne brunches. But there was one photo, casual and slightly out of place. Bianca at a cafe, laughing, her hair less styled, her makeup lighter. The caption read simply, "New Beginnings." I downloaded the image and ran it through a reverse image search. The first few results were what I expected, Bianca's own social media accounts, some society blog reposts. But then, halfway down the second page, I found something that made my heart stop. An archived website. Platinum Elite Companions, London's premier introduction service. The photo was smaller, grainier, but it was definitely her. Younger, maybe by 3 or 4 years. The name beneath it read, B, Sophisticated Companion for Discerning Gentlemen. There was an Essex phone number listed below. I sat frozen in the library chair, staring at the screen. An escort agency. Not just any escort agency, a high-end one, the kind that marketed discretion and class. The kind that catered to wealthy businessmen. Foreign businessmen who didn't ask questions. I clicked through the archived pages, my hands shaking. The website had been taken offline 5 years ago. I searched for news articles about the agency's closure and found a tabloid piece from 6 years back. Exclusive escort ring shut down in Westminster police raid. The article was sensational, full of speculation about clients and scandals. But buried in the middle, almost easy to miss, was a single line. Among those questioned were Bianca Holt, 28, of Basildon, Essex, and Jennifer Marsh, 31, of Croydon. Bianca Holt. I searched for that name immediately. Bianca Holt, Basildon, Essex. Facebook gave me what I needed. An old profile, abandoned 8 years ago. The privacy settings were weak. Whoever Bianca Holt had been, she hadn't been careful about digital footprints. Same face. Same ice blue eyes. But everything else was different. In the profile photo, she was younger, her blonde hair darker at the roots, her makeup heavy. There were videos, short clips from nights out at clubs, her voice loud and unpolished, that crisp British aristocratic accent completely absent. This was pure Essex, working class, the kind of accent Bianca probably spent years learning to hide. Absolutely skint again, read one post from 8 years ago. Hostessing barely covers rent. Need to get out of this dead-end life. Another post, 6 months later, if I have to serve one more drunk banker, I swear. Then posts about joining an exclusive agency. About meeting better clientele. About learning how to dress, how to speak, how to play the part. The posts grew less frequent. More carefully worded. And then, 4 years ago, right around the time Bianca Sterling appeared in Los Angeles, Bianca Holt's profile went completely silent. No final post. No goodbye. Just silence. Like she'd stopped existing. Or like she'd become someone else entirely. I sat back, my mind racing through the implications. Bianca Ashford, Bianca Sterling, whoever she claimed to be, was actually Bianca Holt from Basildon. A former nightclub hostess and escort who'd constructed an entire aristocratic identity to trap a wealthy man into marriage. And now she ruled that mansion with cruelty and fear, especially toward women who were vulnerable, immigrant, working class, women who reminded her of exactly what she'd been. She wasn't protecting a social position. She was protecting a lie. Emma Pritchard was tagged in a dozen of Bianca's old Facebook posts. Photos from nightclubs, birthday parties, girls' nights out. In every photo, Emma had the same bright smile and wild curly hair. Her current profile showed she was living in Manchester, working as a dental hygienist, married with 2 kids. I sent her a message, keeping it vague. Hi Emma, I'm researching someone you used to know, Bianca Holt. Would you be willing to chat? It's important. She responded 3 hours later, who's asking? We arranged a video call for that evening. I used the library's private study room, my laptop balanced on the desk, my heart pounding as her face appeared on screen. Emma looked older than her Facebook photos but had the same shrewd eyes. She studied me carefully before speaking. You're not a journalist, are you? No. I work for someone she's married to. I'm trying to understand who she really is. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. Good luck with that. Bea reinvents herself every few years. She paused. Is she calling herself something posh now? Bianca Sterling. Claims to be from London aristocracy. Of course she does. Emma shook her head. We worked together at a nightclub in Basildon. Oceana, it was called. She was hostessing, I was bartending. This was about 9-10 years ago. B was obsessed with getting out, finding a rich man, the whole fairy tale. She used to study those women, the ones who'd come in with wealthy boyfriends, copy how they dressed, how they talked. She joined an escort agency, I said. Platinum elite, yeah. She was smart about it, targeted high-value clients. Specifically foreign businessmen, she said they were easier, didn't know enough about British society to question her stories. Emma's expression darkened. Then she met him. The rich Asian gangster bloke. Never told me his real name, just called him the jackpot. My stomach tightened. Marcus. She had a whole plan. Got herself pregnant, or said she was pregnant. Showed me the ultrasound photos she'd bought online. Can you believe that? Bought fake ultrasounds. She trapped him into marriage, and a month later, oh, so conveniently, she had a miscarriage. I felt like I'd been punched. She faked a pregnancy to trap him into marriage? 100%. She was bragging about it, texting me the whole plan. Emma's face filled with disgust. I saved the screenshots because I knew she'd deny it someday. Wanted proof I wasn't making it up. She wrote, he'll never know the difference. Once we're married, I'm set for life. And then, Asian families are big on honor. He won't divorce me even after the miscarriage because it would shame him. Emma pulled up her phone, scrolled through old messages. Look, I'll forward these to you. She was so proud of herself. Thought she was brilliant. I watched as the messages came through. Bianca, B, laying out every step of her manipulation. The fake pregnancy test. The researched symptoms she'd pretend to have. The planned miscarriage timeline. And underneath it all, contempt for Marcus, for his culture, for everything except his money. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because B was always cruel to people she thought were beneath her. The bartenders, the cleaners at the club, anyone who reminded her of where she came from. And I'm guessing if she married someone rich, she's 10 times worse now. Emma leaned closer to the camera. Someone needs to stop her. I'm glad it's you. After the call ended, I sat in the dark study room, pieces clicking into place. Bianca's viciousness toward the staff, especially immigrant women, women of color, women who worked with their hands, wasn't random. It was calculated erasure. Every time she destroyed someone like Carmen or Rosa, she was destroying the reflection of who she used to be. The vulnerable. The powerless. The woman desperate enough to sell herself to escape. She'd built her entire identity on a lie, and that lie required constant violence to maintain. But lies that fragile don't just crack. They shatter. The summons came on a Tuesday morning. Mrs. Chen found me in the laundry room, her face pale. Mrs. Bianca wants to see you in her sitting room. Now. I'd been expecting this. Someone had noticed me asking questions, spending time at the library, talking to Mrs. Chen about the past. I'd prepared for this moment, even though my hands were shaking as I climbed the stairs. Bianca's private sitting room was decorated like a throne room, all cream and gold, with a mahogany desk position so she could sit with her back to the windows, backlit like she was in a portrait. She was dressed severely today, black dress, hair pulled back tight, no smile. Sit, she said, not looking up from her phone. I remained standing. You asked to see me, Mrs. Bianca? She finally looked at me, and her eyes were cold enough to freeze blood. I know you've been asking questions about me. Digging into things that don't concern you. She set down her phone with deliberate care. Marcus has made people disappear for far less than what you've been doing. I protected you after the dress incident, but I won't be so generous again. You'll vanish, and no one will ever find you. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but 3 years in courtrooms had taught me how to keep my voice steady. I don't think you want Marcus to know what I've found, Bianca. Or should I call you Beholt from Basildon? The color drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug. I found platinum elite companions, I continued, pulling papers from my pocket, printouts I'd kept on me for days, waiting for this moment. I found the Facebook profile. I talked to Emma Pritchard. She was very helpful. She even saved the text messages where you bragged about trapping up a rich Asian gangster with a fake pregnancy. Bianca stood up so fast her chair scraped backward. You have no idea what you're. I have medical records showing you were never pregnant. I have the screenshots of you discussing buying fake ultrasounds online. I have witness statements from Emma and 2 other women who worked with you at the escort agency. I stepped closer, my voice dropping. I've documented everything, and I've given copies to a trusted attorney with very specific instructions about what to do if anything happens to me. You're bluffing. But her voice shook. Am I? I pulled out my phone, showed her Emma's forwarded messages, the text where she'd written, "He'll never know the difference. Once we're married, I'm set for life. Try me." Bianca's mask was cracking, that perfect aristocratic composure fracturing like porcelain. What do you want? Money? I can pay you to. I don't want your money. I took a breath. But here's what you didn't know. I didn't stage this meeting in private. I told Marcus what time you wanted to see me. And I made sure I left the door open. Bianca's eyes went wide with horror as she looked past me toward the doorway. Marcus was standing there. I don't know how long he'd been listening, but the look on his face told me it was long enough. Not anger, that would have been easier. This was devastation. Pure, profound betrayal carved into every line of his expression. Marcus, Bianca started, her voice breaking, all the careful British accent slipping. Marcus, she's lying, she's trying to. He held up one hand, and she fell silent. For a long moment, he just looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. Or maybe seeing her clearly for the first time. Then he turned to me. Thank you for your honesty. His voice was quiet, controlled, but I could hear the pain underneath. You're free to leave whenever you choose. Full payment and a reference. Mrs. Chen will arrange it. He looked back at Bianca, and his voice went flat, emotionless. My attorney will contact you in the morning. Be gone by tomorrow night. Then he walked away, leaving Bianca standing there, her empire of lies crumbling around her like ash. Bianca left the next morning. I watched from my window above the garage as she walked out with 2 suitcases, the same ones she'd probably arrived with 4 years ago. No designer luggage. No staff to carry her things. No Marcus to say goodbye. Just a woman in expensive clothes getting into a taxi, her perfect mask finally stripped away. Mrs. Chen cried when she heard. Not from sadness. From relief. Marcus stayed in his study for most of that day, but he sent his attorney to the house with documents. Affidavits protecting every staff member from retaliation. Financial settlements for those Bianca had harmed. Rosa Mercado received enough to bring her children to visit her in Mexico and hire an immigration attorney. Carmen got a check that made her drop to her knees in the hallway, sobbing. I stayed for 2 weeks to help with the transition. Marcus asked Mrs. Chen to take over household management, and she ran it the way I imagined that house should have always been run, with kindness and dignity. Carmen was promoted to a supervisory position with a scholarship for ESL classes at the local community college. The mansion felt different without Bianca. Lighter. Like someone had opened windows that had been sealed shut for years. 3 days after Bianca left, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Jasmine Williams? This is Kelsey Okoye, senior partner at Rights Rising LLP. I froze. Rights Rising was one of the most prestigious civil rights firms in California. I'd applied there straight out of law school and never even gotten a call back. I've been following your career since Morrison and Chen, Kelsey continued. When that firm collapsed, I knew it wasn't your fault. I've been waiting to see where you'd land. She paused. Then I heard through the legal community about what you did at the Duyan mansion. Marcus shared your story with his attorney, who happens to be a friend of mine. He was very impressed by your character. My throat was tight. I just did what was right. Exactly. That's why I'm calling. We're launching a new division, corruption and workplace abuse. We need a lead investigator. Someone with legal expertise and real-world understanding of what it means to be vulnerable. Another pause. We want you, Jasmine. If you're interested. I sat down on my bed, tears streaming down my face, unable to speak. Take your time, Kelsey said gently. But I hope you'll say yes. The world needs people who refuse to look away. I said yes through tears. On my last day at the mansion, I found Carmen in the staff quarters, staring at a community college application for their paralegal program. She looked up when I entered, her eyes uncertain. I don't know if I can do this, she said quietly. School was always hard for me. I sat beside her. You can do this. And I'll help you with the application. We worked through it together, personal statement, transcripts, financial aid forms. When we finished, Carmen looked at me with something like wonder in her eyes. I never thought someone would stand up for us, she said. Someone should have done it a long time ago. I squeezed her hand. But now you know something important. The most dangerous thing you can be to a bully isn't powerful. It's unafraid. The next morning, I walked out of the Duyun mansion for the last time. Mrs. Chen hugged me at the door. Carmen waved from the window. Marcus nodded once from his study, a gesture of respect I hadn't expected but appreciated. I carried a briefcase instead of a mop. Inside were the documents from my investigation, the affidavits Marcus had provided, and a letter of recommendation that made me sound like a hero when I'd just been someone who couldn't stand by and watch. As I got into my car, I looked back at the mansion one last time. It looked different now. Less like a prison, more like a house where people could breathe. I'd lost everything 6 months ago, my career, my identity, my sense of purpose. I'd thought falling from attorney to maid meant I'd lost my power to fight injustice. But I'd learned something in that mansion, something more valuable than any degree or title. Justice doesn't require credentials. It requires courage. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be afraid. I started the car and drove toward my new life, ready to fight again, this time, with the wisdom of having lived on both sides of power, and the knowledge that the truth is always worth defending, no matter who you're facing. The monster was gone. And I was finally, truly, free. Hello besties. If you made it to the end of Jasmine's story, thank you so much for watching. Her courage reminds us that the truth is always worth fighting for, no matter how powerful the enemy. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another powerful tale of justice and redemption. I've also selected 2 incredible stories just for you. Click on the images on your screen right now to watch them next. Until next time, remember, the most dangerous thing you can be to a bully isn't powerful, it's unafraid. See you in the next story.